Welcome, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I know this is a really tight turnaround between the last two panels, so I appreciate your attention and getting in your seats and getting excited for this really interesting discussion we're about to hear. So just a little bit about myself for those of you who have not met me. My name is Maddie Devine. I'm a first year at FUBA who's helped to plan the social impact panel. So thank you. So we've had a really great day so far, some really exciting panels, some really exciting keynotes. This is our last panel of the day, and it's going to be a really wonderful panel to learn more about the community that we're in Durham from some of its really important and impactful citizens. So thank you all for being here, and I'm excited about the conversation that is about to start. So I'm going to hand it over to Lee, our moderator.
Thank you, Maddie. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have to admit I'm a little nervous about this panel after hearing the conversation in the background, but it'll be fun at least. I think it's high energy, which is Durham. And that's what we're talking about is redevelopment in Durham and pathways to what I'm very proud of to call my home. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some successes and challenges, some thoughts about the future. And we certainly want to leave enough time for some Q&A and some conversation with the audience, because we certainly want to get you engaged in the conversation as well. So I'm going to do my best to rein these folks in by 3 o'clock, and so we'll have some time for a Q&A. Yeah, good luck. I'm hearing good luck, and so I may have to encourage the audience to help with that. So a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to ask each of the participants to introduce themselves and talk about their organization. I'm Lee Worsley. I'm a Deputy County Manager with Durham County Government. I'm responsible primarily for public safety and for planning and development agencies in the county. I also supervise the technology functions of the county. Been in Durham for about 1 year and 3 months. I've also been in Catawba County. I was an assistant manager there. I've been a county manager in the eastern part of the state, and also worked for a city. So I've had different experiences of both city and county government, large and small. And I'm excited to be here. And with that, I'm going to ask Kevin to start off with some introductions.
I don't think they could have picked a more raucous panel to end the day with. So a lot of times you go to these conferences and you sort of wind down during the course of the day, but you will definitely be amped back up. Pleased to be here. I'm Kevin Dick. I'm the Director of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development with the City of Durham. And in that role, I also serve as the Executive Director of the Durham Workforce Development Board. Our department basically administers programs and services that help businesses get recruited, help them grow, and help them help them start within the city. On the workforce development side, we administer the job training and placement programs for the entire county through an interlocal agreement with Durham County. Basically, we just look towards growing a stronger and more diverse economy in Durham, and we do that with some of the partners that the esteemed panelists represent. And just very pleased to be here. I'm a halfback, which means I started my career and my life in the Northeast, moved to South Florida for 9 years, and then relocated to North Carolina, halfway back home. Another one.
I'm Michael Goodmon. I'm with Capital Broadcasting Company. I represent one half of the third generation of that company. My focus is the real estate group. Our biggest, most notable projects is the American Tobacco Historic District here in downtown Durham. We also own and operate the Durham Bulls. We became deeply involved with Durham in about 1990 when we tried to take the Bulls from them. And we lost, damn it. It all works out in the end in a good way, though. But that you'll hear more about that story. But we really got engaged with the concept. We believe in regionalism. Regionalism is the biggest weakness that our community has. And when I say community, I'm talking about the triangle. If Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill work together, they will not die. I promise. and we believe that regionalism is our greatest weakness and could be our greatest asset. So our work in the community usually is based around that, and downtown Durham is an exciting example of how localized investment and localized efforts can cause regional effects.
Thank you, Goodman. I'm Farad. I work with the North County Institute of Minority Economic Development. We're a nonprofit, statewide nonprofit, located in Durham. We actually purchased a national landmark, a historic landmark for the Black Wall Street. Some of y'all may be familiar with. So the Black Wall Street started in Durham, and there was one they also talked about in Tulsa, but Tulsa was more around merchants. On one street, the Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina, was mainly financial institutions. North Carolina Mutual Community Savings Bank. In that building, we focus on really building equity with women and minority-owned firms. We feel like North Carolina is a very unique state. We have one of the top 10 largest populations in the country. We have the 8th largest African American population in the country. We have more Native Americans east of the Mississippi than any other state. One of the fastest growing Asian population and Hispanic population. So we look at the state of North Carolina having 100 counties, and 15 of them are rural. No, 85 of them are rural, only 15 are urban. We have a huge human asset. That human assets are people. And what we've known in this state is that women-owned businesses are growing faster than any other business in the country. And a lot of them are here in North Carolina, so we work with them through our Women's Business Center, focus on the growth of women-owned businesses, because we know women hire women. And women are running things. I'm just trying to
telling.
He's reminding me that we're 46 in educational funding. And also really, and you look at, if you think education is a barometer for opportunities, we see that all the schools in the state of North Carolina have more women in them than men, except for one. I think it's the one we're sitting in. Has a higher percentage of men than women in school, but y'all can change that. And so our focus is how do we build the equity of the people by making sure they have a chance to prosper. Because we know that if we can build the prosperity of the people and help them get business, get them business loans, get them good management technical assistance, getting them market opportunities. So we have like an urban Peace Corps. We have a staff of people who have MBAs and technical expertise to help build those businesses around the state. We're particularly focused here in Durham. We have an office in Raleigh, Charlotte, Greensboro, and Fayetteville.
My name is Tucker Bartlett. I work with a company called Self-Help. Self-Help is what is known as a community development financial institution. So basically a nonprofit bank. We've been around since 1980, headquartered in Durham. We're the largest CDFI, community development financial institution in the country. And we basically, and we're headquartered here. We have offices across North Carolina, now in California. Out of California, we just expanded to Chicago. So we're sort of growing nationally. But we basically do 4 different things as a nonprofit bank. And our mission is to help low-wealth people and communities create wealth. So we do that 4 ways. One is we're a credit union, so we have retail banking services, just like any bank would, but very, very much focused on serving lower income populations and serving them responsibly. No payday loans, no overdraft, big overdraft fees, those kind of like responsible direct services that are help people create wealth as opposed to strip it like some banks do. The second thing we do is a lot of lending activities. So everything from what a typical credit union might do, car loans, credit card loans, but a lot of direct home loans. Second, small business lending, everything from mom and pops to larger businesses. And on the larger end, we do a lot of real estate financing. So commercial real estate, downtown redevelopment type projects. We finance a lot of child care, green energy, healthy foods, are some of our big sectors, and charter schools that serve low-income kids. So that's some of our big lending. And we do both direct lending and we also do secondary market lending, which is basically we'll partner with other banks. We have a big home lending partnership with 33 banks across the country. We'll buy portfolios of loans made to low-income population to buy houses. We'll buy them, guarantee them, and sell them to Fannie Mae, turn them into mortgage-backed securities. So we've basically done this effort to create more liquidity in the home lending markets to low-income populations. So that's sort of our second line of business, all of our lending activity. That's probably our biggest thing. The third thing we do is we're real estate developers. So both residential will work in neighborhoods, but often have a lot of disinvestment, a lot of boarded up houses, etc. And we'll buy vacant lots, vacant houses, rehab those houses or build new ones and sell them to low and moderate income families to help both stabilize neighborhoods with home ownership, but also provide affordable housing. And then we have a commercial real estate development arm that we'll probably talk more about here that works in downtowns, mostly across North Carolina and DC, buying old, often historic buildings in downtowns, trying to reinvigorate downtown. And then the fourth thing we do, if you think of those first three things we do banking, we do lending, we do real estate development. Those are all areas for us to experiment, to innovate, to figure out what works to help create wealth. And the fourth thing we do is a policy group. It's a sister organization called the Center for Responsible Lending, and they advocate at the state and federal level to try to get policies put in place or to fight laws that we think are harmful to low-income populations. So we were very instrumental with a lot of partner organizations in getting rid of payday lending in North Carolina, the first state to do that. In the Dodd-Frank bill that was done last year, so mortgage reform, we had a big part in that as well. So that's really, I think, where we had our huge impact. If we can figure out how to experiment at the doing level, if you take it to the policy, you can really expand your impact. So anyway, we're trying to fight the fight as a nonprofit bank, but doing it through various ways.
So, in keeping with the theme of this track, Durham, a case study in community development, I asked the panelists to think about what your organization's most significant impact has been in Durham in the last 5 years, and talk about it for a minute or two. Kevin?
Sure. We've, there's been a lot of mention of real estate development, and we actually have served as sort of a public arm to some of those projects. We were involved with incentives and other, sort of public-private partnership aspects of the American Tobacco Campus development agreement. That's just an example. That didn't start within the last 5 years. I think within the last 5 years, the Durham Performing Arts Center has been a pretty big addition to Durham. Our department, in conjunction with a lot of partners. I mean, I understand the question, but I think it's really important to say that a lot of what we do cannot be done without not just the private sector partners, Capital Broadcasting, Self-Help, NC-IMED, who are represented here, but also quasi-public partners like the Chamber of Commerce, public partners like the county, all in the, from an economic development perspective. From a workforce development perspective, one significant thing has been related to expanding our JobLink presence. The JobLink Career Center system is the direct service arm of what our office administers and what the Durham Workforce Development Board plans and guides. And so we've expanded that, added another JobLink center that would have more accessibility to people in the northern part of the county. Right now, the existing center had been in the southern part. So we added one in the northern part, and despite some challenges we've been having in working with another very significant partner in the state, we've been seeing some pretty good dividends from that extra center in terms of specific recruitments that companies do to recruit talent, and the ability of the JobLink Center to bring in people that match the skill sets companies want and connect them with those opportunities. But thirdly, I think that going back kind of to on the economic development side of bridging the workforce development, I think that in general, there have been some key downtown revitalization and neighborhood revitalization projects that our office has been involved with that are going to reactivate buildings that have been underutilized for decades in some cases. In downtown, it's funny because Michael and I will be on another panel discussion that I had to beg, borrow, and steal for him to participate in, but he's going to do it. In April in Atlanta, where we'll actually be at the Transforming Local Governments Conference, talking about how we've used really transformative projects like American Tobacco and the tax revenues that it has brought into the city to reinvest those revenues in smaller economic development grant programs. Because what I just described has really helped revitalize downtown as a whole. So whereas American Tobacco Campus is, several acres and it's 1 million square feet of commercial space, that's all in one place. Throughout downtown, we've been able to bring forth some grant programs by really just implementing some studies and plans that we've had on the books for several years, working with developers to get input on how those policies and programs should be structured, then implementing the programs and really putting out over the last few years several hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to help small businesses upfit their spaces, buy equipment, do other things that were going to lead to taxable revenue. So basically be an investment of the city into the private sector that will yield benefits not only to the public in terms of new places to shop and eat or work, but also to the macro public, the government, in terms of the tax revenues that those projects will bring back to the city and the county in terms of sales taxes and increased property taxes. So that downtown revitalization has been significant. Neighborhood revitalization, working with Tucker's group on revitalizing a 48,000 square foot building in Northeast Central Durham, and it's more or less been underutilized for over 40 years. And it's why not add to a raucous topic discussion by mentioning the polarizing aspect of this project, and that is the fact that the building is soon to be occupied by a charter school. So I walk around town and people say, why are you giving a grant to a charter school? I said, we're not giving a grant to a charter school. What we're doing is contributing to the redevelopment of a building, whether we're a charter school or a light industrial plant that we're going in the building, like Sigmund said. Anyway. Whether it were a charter school or a light industrial plant that were going in the building, that would have been of limited significance to us. What we wanted to see was a building reactivated 2.5 blocks from the Andrew Driver corridor, where we're about to engage in a $3.2 million streetscape, where we're investing in commercial businesses, so that because when you reactivate a 48,000 square foot building and there are hundreds of people going in and out every day, maybe after school they'll go down the block to get a burger or get a hot dog or participate in other commercial opportunities. So those are two pretty significant neighborhood revitalization things. And then I think what will emerge as more significant is the economic and workforce development bridge that I feel is very unique to Durham as opposed to some other areas. Durham had the foresight, I think, which preceded me, but economic and workforce development being housed in the same office. There are a lot of places where you go where the economic development function is in one building administered by one agency. The workforce development function is in another building across town administered by another agency. By housing them in the same place, and this is personally rewarding for me because of my career progression in urban planning with an emphasis on community and economic development, working on the workforce development side, and to some extent the economic development side in South Florida, and now being able to really put it all together in one place in Durham. But what will emerge as being very important is the fact that with all of these, what I would call IT projects, the big splashy projects, the DPAC, the American Tobacco Campus, West Village, all of these places that hopefully you all have already visited or will, and downtown. But with all of these kinds of projects, what they will mean for the small business in Durham, that maybe the small contracting firm that wants to bid on these projects, what they can mean to Durham residents who are looking for work. Because as significant as the DPAC is to all of the people that buy tickets there, to all of the Polestar ratings that rated #1 The #1 theater with seats under 5,000 in the nation. Shameless plug. Okay. But to the Durham resident who's lived here all her life, what is that? Who doesn't go to Broadway shows? Who doesn't go to concerts? How significant is that building to her? And so what will emerge as being very important is the fact that because we're creating these large opportunities and we're connecting the opportunities to the local small business and to the local job seeker, with all deference to Mike, because I understand the importance of regionalism too, and I understand that Durham is in a labor market shed. There are 50-some thousand people that commute to Durham every day. There are 20 or 30,000 that commute out of Durham every day. We're a metropolitan area now. We've arrived. We're on the map. So those things are givens. However, if a Durham resident gets that job, if a Durham business gets that contract, where are they most likely to spend their money? In Durham. So that sales tax and those property taxes are going to recirculate and build greater economic wealth in our communities. So as we can solidify that bridge even more through some of our development agreements, I believe that will be, if not a significant thing that the organization has done in the last 5 years, it will emerge as one that will leave a lasting legacy.
I stick by my regionalism. In fact, you know what the this is interesting. You'll be surprised when I you know what the #1 most important thing that could happen for Durham's economic development is?
Education.
Well, you don't. Look, it's not your turn. The answer is that Dix Park in Raleigh is a great park. You're surprised by the answer, but people care about where they live. They care about their community. And for everybody who's not in Durham or Raleigh, we're in the Triangle, okay? Or we're in RTP. We're not in Durham, we're not in Raleigh, and the regional stuff really matters. Sorry, that's side. Now, what did we learn last time? Yeah, it's going to be around American tobacco. You know, from the beginning, I really thought Durham needed to get its swagger back.
Thank you for bringing it.
Right? Durham needed to get its swagger back. Durham, downtown Durham especially, was having a lot of trouble. Feelings about Durham were challenged, and we really felt that the American Tobacco facility that Durham holds offered a great opportunity to not only change the asset we have, but the perception of what Durham is. I'll tell you this, if I went to Farad and Tucker and Kevin, and it was 12 years ago, I said, guys, guess what? You ain't gonna believe it. We're gonna have 1.2, 1.3 million square feet of space, and we're gonna have 1.4 million people a year coming to downtown Durham to the American Tobacco facility. You thought I smoking crack, right? This is funny. Of course, they're like, oh, you always pick on me during these things. Be nice to me. And now they're going after me.
You got swagger.
But that's an unbelievable stat if you think back over 10 years. That's the transformation that's happened. When American Tobacco closed in August of 1987, there were 2,000 people who worked there. And with those 2,000 people went their pharmacists, went their weekly supply of cigarettes. Everybody got some cigarettes. But their cafeteria, their doctor, their housing. Everything was provided to you by these industrial companies. So one thing you got to keep in mind is when you go to a Rocky Mountain or Wilson and you see these plants shutting down and these textile plants, people aren't losing their jobs, they're losing their lives. Right? And that's what happened in Durham in August of 1987. Now we have over 4,000 people working. Right? North of $200 million in public and private investment put in. But we're the first to tell you that it wasn't us. Right? It was our partners. It was the city. Farad was part of that. It was self-help. It was Duke University, whose presence there is unimaginable. Nan Cohen, who we went and saw when we went to this project, in the first meeting with my father said, we'll do it. I don't know if she had the ability to do that. But in the county, right? She knows that. Come on.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm going to get some like default notice on my lease tomorrow. But Nan and Dr. Bartlett, I mean, they both see the importance and the power that Duke has to change the community. And it took a lot of people and a lot of companies to make American tobacco happen. And the good news was we were dumb enough to do it. I laugh at people a lot. Well, why do you think you've been successful in American tobacco? And the answer is because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We didn't know how stupid of a plan this was. This has never been about, we're not interested in hemorrhaging money, but this has never been about, oh my God, what a great financial opportunity for us. This has been about, think about the community impact. You're never going to find a private business more invested in the health of the community than a broadcaster. right? Because a broadcaster, the power of their market is the power of their business. The bigger the DMA, right? The better the DMA, the more valuable their assets. Broadcasters really care about our community. I've always been brought up by my dad and my mom, both personally and professionally, that the thing that is most paramount as our performance as a business is the health of the community, not the health of the company. That's something that's really lost today, right? Companies don't get that. I mean, since when has your success as a company been based on what your tax burden is? I don't understand why you can't be successful in North Carolina, like it's in South Carolina, I pay 1% less taxes. The fact of the matter is, it's about community development, it's about creating great communities. And that's really the power of what's happening in downtown Durham, is you've got great people, great, very diverse group of people. By the way, diversity drives it all. I know it's hard to see, but diversity drives it all. If I go to meetings in Raleigh, everybody looks like me. If I go to meetings in Durham, everybody looks like all us, right? That power of that diversity and different ways of thinking has really pushed Durham along, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about, because it just keeps growing. That's why you see the entrepreneurial sector blowing up. Got a couple hundred young companies blowing up in downtown Durham, because this is where the soul of the triangle is, and this is where they want to be to grow in a diverse community.
So in closing, thanks for your stupidity.
So, Michael, the one thing I love about Michael is that he is unadulterated, right? He just comes straight out, he's transparent. And one of the things that he and Kevin has said that I'm sure Tucker will echo is that Durham is big on collaboration, right? And we've all collaborated on projects. So when you talk about downtown Durham, for example, the county with the building or the city providing subsidies, and then Michael coming into the building and hiring contractors to redo the building, then they engage the Institute to say we want to make sure that minority women have a chance, because we're going to invest all this money in redeveloping this building. So we're going to hire the company, Bovis, Turner, or whoever, to build, $20 million worth of this, and we want to make sure that Durham residents also are part of building this, so they can have some sense of investment. And then he goes to Tucker to get the capital to make sure that they do the deal. So we all have this kind of investment in American tobacco that's real. And you start saying, well, Durham's biggest value is its collaboration. It's not many cities that you know around the state of North Carolina where they put passion over profits. And what you see here is a sense of having that big nonprofit community that's supportive with the corporate community, that's supportive with the government community. That's really the trifecta. That's really the fourth sector. Taking government, nonprofits, and for-profits and putting them together and leveraging that asset, because those are all assets, in creating something special. So, and we can talk about lots of projects that we've all been in together, 2 of us or 3 of us or one by themselves, around a sense of collaboration. Mastering collaboration is the success, not just in downtown Durham, but probably also in anything that you're doing in your life, because nothing can be done alone. And Durham recognized that really quickly, and I think the humility of the people to recognize that is really important than to have a bunch of people in Raleigh that look like Michael with swagger. It must take a much longer time to get things done, because there's not necessarily an openness for diverse views and opinions to execute something special. So,
That's one of the things I thought, sorry, we're forgetting the political leadership has been astounding. And the fact of the matter is, the people who stood up, and it's a long story, but the people who stood up and made sure that Durham stayed in Durham, the Bulls stayed in Durham, they lost their jobs. Right? But now you can't find anybody that says, I can't believe we did the Durham Bulls ball club. You ain't gonna find anybody that says that, but the people who stood up and did that lost their seats the next time. So there have been people who really sacrificed, their positions and their roles for forever, because they were doing what they thought was right. And that's something that Durham also has that's very powerful tool.
There's the same thing around American Tobacco. What's the city and county doing, building parking decks for millionaires? But that was a visionary project that has really been the catalyst. And what every other developer points to when they're trying to do something in Durham, they say, well, look at American Tobacco.
Right.
Before there was American Tobacco, you couldn't really point to anything to say it would be successful. To make it more of a love fest here. To be on record for saying one positive thing.
I want that swag.
Or you can think about the next quarter. And I had the opportunity, I was just coming out of business school, and I was hired by Self-Help, and I was the loan officer for the American Tobacco project. We did the loan for them to get their first phase. And the project, was, because of Duke's commitment and some other big commitments from groups like Glaxo and the city and the county, this thing was, it had its decks built, it was 85% pre-leased, and they're in the middle of construction. This thing was going to be a financial success because they had all those great tenants lined up. And it was the middle of the project. They just hadn't figured out what are some wow factors they could do for this project. And they decided to put the river. That wasn't in the original scope of work. So if you know American Tobacco and you know that river, that wasn't, there was going to be a nice landscaped lawn and some bushes and stuff, but no river. And they decided to add that cost on themselves. They asked us for some money, we gave them a little bit. But they how much did that river cost you? $5 million. So it was a $5 million. They didn't need to put in. They didn't. They already had their revenue stream committed in these 15-year leases, and they decided to add the river because they wanted this to be a special project for Durham for the long term. And that most developers, when they have an 85% lease, are trying to cut costs. There's no requirement in the lease that there's going to be a river there. So they can collect that revenue, not have that big expense of running a river or building it up front. So that's just the kind of sort of long-term commitment. And the challenge for Durham is going to be, we've got our first, sort of history, the mills shut down, everybody left town, all the banks left, downtown died. It started slowly coming back early, late 1999, late 90s when West Village happened, early 2000. This project happened, and where was I going with this story?
The challenge we have.
Thank you. The challenge we have is that this last run was done by all local developers. It was done by the Capital Broadcasting, Self-Help, Greenfire. They get beat up in the press for a lot of things, but they've done a lot of good stuff. Scientific Properties, Measurement Inc., a lot of locally owned companies. The interest now is a lot of out of state. And so, what is their commitment to our community? Will they put the river in when they don't need to put the river in? So it'll be a very interesting dynamic of all this. It's great to have out of state interest. That means we're on the map. People want to be here. But anyway, this is my opportunity to do plugs for Self-Help and talk about all the great things we've done in the last 5 years. The great opportunity we have is we're both a developer and a bank, so we've gotten to participate with a lot of great groups, and on a range of things. So from an American Tobacco to Urban Ministries, which does housing for the homeless and feeds the homeless, from financing Golden Belt to Housing for New Hope, which is transition housing for the homeless. Something high-end like the new hotel that's going downtown, we're the bank for that in 21C, to doing child care centers all around town. Baldwin Lofts, Greenfire's first project to get them started. We've done a number of great restaurants you might have been able to visit. Toast, Parker and Otis, Mateo, Pizzeria Toro, the Cupcake Bar. So we've really had a chance to invest in all these different companies, a lot of them women-owned, to Farad's point. Startups, and then from the development side, we've developed a senior affordable housing on our residential real estate work, really with partnership with Duke. We've done 100 houses. We can celebrate our 100th house in the last 5 years in the Walltown neighborhood, which is right next to East Campus. We've partnered with Habitat and the Durham Community Land Trust to do 120 houses in the West End neighborhood, which is right off of West Chapel Hill Street, not far from here. And then in the South Side neighborhood, which is a big redevelopment area, we've acquired 100 houses there and about to start the redevelopment of that neighborhood. So we've done a lot of that. And then downtown, recruited a really high-impact nonprofit called NBC. Their headquarters is in Chapel Hill. They've moved to Durham. They're really a national organization. We redid a building for them and helped bring them to Durham. So, and then the school that Kevin mentioned, which got really a political hot button because it's a charter school. As far as we care, it does a good job educating low-income kids. If anybody can do that, we're going to be supportive. And if you can help revitalize Northeast Central Durham, which that school is willing to go in, save Durham's oldest school building remaining, and then A.J. Fletcher Foundation, which is the Goodman Family Foundation, put money into this as well. So again, a partnership on a lot of fronts. To be able to do a project like that we're very proud of it.
And Self-Help probably owns all the buildings downtown or financed them. So you start talking about Self-Help recruited us to come downtown. We were in Raleigh.
Right.
They said, we want you to buy the Mechanics and Farmers Bank building and we'll finance it. I mean, it was a done deal, so
Right.
that kind of things happen.
I'm really excited about it. We're also partnering with American Underground is growing, which is the entrepreneurial space coming up to Main Street. So we're partnering with Capital Broadcasting on that, which is very exciting. And our next project coming on West Chapel Hill Street will hopefully open up bring a co-op grocery store to West Chapel Hill Street, not far from here, called Durham Central Market. So that's something working with Kevin on as well.
So I'll throw this out to the group, whoever wants to take it. If all of you want to take it, it's great too. What are you talk about challenges?
Mm-hmm.
So what have you all seen as some of the biggest hurdles that have had to be overcome to get us to this point today? And what do you see as some of the most significant hurdles to keep progressing, for Durham to keep progressing into the future?
Today, I think one of the biggest ones was believing in ourselves, like putting out a vision that people can buy into and believe. When Capital was doing American Tobacco, I mean, right now it's so successful. Like, how could you not believe that was going to be? But at the time, it's sort of getting over a mental hurdle, which I think we've gotten over. Now we love ourselves. Before we had to have this whole campaign, Durham, love yourself, because Durham thought of itself in the triangle. It was thought of as the ugly stepchild in the triangle.
That's what I meant by swagger, bro.
Yeah, it's got exactly.
Is anybody tweeting? Like, is Michael Goodman swag?
Already been tweeted.
I think there are two. I'll be real negative.
Okay.
I think there's two massive anchors around our neck that will pull us to the bottom of the sea, and it is education and it is crime, and they're very real. And we're making progress on both fronts, but we got to make faster progress. In Durham, there's a great project we're a part of, and everybody here is a part of it in some way, called the East Durham Children's Initiative. EDCI is framed after the Harlem Children's Zone with one huge exception. We don't have a $100 million operating budget. We're trying to get to a $5 million operating budget and touch 1,900 youth within about a 90-block area. The interesting thing about the education system is we all want to scream about the education system, but when you're educating high-poverty individuals, education is about a lot more than just education. It's about where you slept the night before and what you ate that morning and what your mom did when she was pregnant with you. And is your dad in the house? Very simple, basic questions to a lot of people, very complicated to a lot of families in this neighborhood. And EDCI is sort of an umbrella organization working to kind of provide 360 degrees of service to these kids and try to stop a very scary trend with the high poverty neighborhood and the generation upon generation upon generation of kids who don't have an option. I mean, yeah, there's great antidotes. We can all come up with them, but on the average, right? I mean, if you're African American and you're in 3rd grade and you can't read yet, you will end up in jail. Now that's overstating a little bit, but that they actually size new jails based on 3rd grade reading rates. That's how scary this has gotten.
It's worse than that, right? Not only have they sized them, they already got the builders. They already determined who's going to build the jails.
Now they have private operators.
And they got private operators.
Lobbying the legislature.
The funny thing is, now the jails are putting their names on, I just saw Florida State University, so they're now sponsoring statements. They're for-profit state prisons sponsor education.
How do you feel about private jail operators lobbying for longer sentences?
And they're written in the issue.
Is that a problem? Is that a conflict?
And some of them are written into the bill. So ABC company will build the jails for the next 10 years. So are they going to give money to the school system to help kids? It's retarded. I mean, why would they want to help the school system?
We have really gotten off topic.
It's downtown though. That's where our jail is.
It's actually a public safety center. Thanks.
With long-term residents. Long-term residents. Not affordable housing.
We had up in W1 up in 1998. It's about 80,000 square feet, and we had to really work on people to come to downtown Durham then. And we used to get these complaints about women would say people are screaming at them when they're coming out of the building, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And we finally figured out
it was at a hotel.
It was the public
small windows.
It was a jail. They were screaming out of the jail. But so when I say education and crime, what am I really saying? I'm saying poverty. Right? Durham has an immense poverty gap. And we have got to get on it, and we've got to have the whole community involved. We need the white community, we need the African American community involved. We need everybody involved to make that better. So I tell you, if you're interested in learning more about EBCI, come see me, and I'll shoot you in the right direction, because we need smart people like y'all to be a part of what we're doing.
I think, so this sort of piggybacks on a couple of the comments already. I agree with Tucker in part. I think that we love ourselves more than we used to. But I think that there are certain segments in which we don't love ourselves. And this kind of connects to Michael's point. One, I think, really substantive place where there could be a lot more progression in terms of what we feel our capabilities are with some of our residents and their perceptions of jobs they can get. Because Durham is on the map, we're able to recruit Fortune 500s, Fortune 200s, Fortune 100s to expand or be located in. And so, sometimes those companies come with, fully of their own volition. Sometimes they come with incentives attached. Incentives, by the way, let me just say this. When you read about an incentive in the paper, it's not a big fat check cut to a company so they can come to it. They're all performance-based, and they happen after projects are completed or after deliverables happen. So the next thing you read about, maybe in Duke Chronicle or in one of the local papers, is when you know. But anyway, so
Big fat check works too.
It does. It comes at the end. And sometimes it comes over time in smaller checks.
It comes with a lot of bruises.
Double strands.
But yeah,
Clawback division.
that's right. All of those things. Public lives have to stick together.
That's right.
Anyway, but one of the things that we hear is that, well, you guys, meaning sort of the Economic Development Partnership, the City, County Chamber, DEI, are recruiting companies to Durham that have jobs that Durham people can't do. Now, if I haven't heard anything that's more self-loathing than that, I don't know what that is. But anyway, that's a perception. I differ slightly with Michael. I think the education and crime, they're not where they need to be, but I also think that the perception is as big as the reality. Because you can look at the crime figures in Durham compared with any other city, its size in the South, and its average. It's not disproportionately higher crime. It's not disproportionately worse education. But where I'm 100% in lockstep with you is that when you have people saying, number one, the economic development engine that is Durham is recruiting jobs that people can't do, number one, that's one of the perceptions. And number two, that, and this is a reality, this part I'm about to say is a reality, that the unemployment rate in 2010 in Durham was about, for whites, it was about 5.5%. For blacks, it was 19%. That's true. Those are census figures. That is what it is. But it's the cause behind it that, to me, is connected to this some level of self-loathing in my opinion. Because what we have is we're looking at it as more of some people are looking at it more as sort of a legal equity issue. Not legal, but almost like a de facto equity issue. Like because companies are discriminatory, because institutions are discriminatory, the unemployment rate is in that state. Does discrimination happen in employment practices? Sure. It probably still does. I don't know if it's at the level it was in the 30s, 40s, or 50s, but there are definitely some inequities that are happening in terms of employment rates, in terms of earnings, in terms of those are unquestionable. But where I'm going is that when you talk about what Michael just said with, lower achievement levels by race, lower socioeconomic things that are happening that seem to coincide with racial inequities, that's going to lead to employment inequity. Right. So it's less an issue about how discriminatory practices are or the jobs we're bringing in as it is education. If education is a problem in 3rd grade, that even if that kid does pick up his reading level and is able to finish high school, he's going to be at a deficit when it's time to go find a job. And so when people look at unemployment rates and say, well, why is that such a stark thing? There's something wrong in our society. Well, there is something wrong in our society. But the causal factors have to be, I think, they have to be realized a lot more than just the superficial kind of stamp of, well, that's racist. It's not. There might be some racist things that are leading into it. There might, little black boys or little Latino boys may be treated differently in terms of disciplinary things than little white kids. That I've seen instances where that happens.
That's generational.
But it's generational as well. So so people that were in those poverty situations are sometimes begetting people that was also in poverty situations.
So my answer.
Sorry.
No, please go ahead. No.
Well,
I was going to just edify what you just said.
Okay. Well, please edify.
Well, so I was not going to be as eloquent as him, but I think Durham's biggest assets are their people and collaboration, and I think that Durham's biggest weaknesses are their people and lack of collaboration.
Yeah.
So the same sense of collaboration that we see in doing building development in downtown, we need to have the same kind of strategic planning and doing to develop around our city. And it doesn't happen like that, right? So what you have are the spectrums of what Kevin is talking about. Because for me, I got an MBA, I went to Dartmouth in here and all that stuff. My thing is, it is not black or white, it's green, right? Because in a lot of instances, people follow the money. And if you follow the money, if you invest, when you're in the communities like Northeast Central Durham, right, which is considered the Harlem right now, North of Durham, I think it's the place is even worse. And you start thinking about, when you have disinvestment in a community, no banks, no drugstores, no health facilities, poor transportation system, and lack of good housing in this community. And then you can go down to Hope Valley Farms or Woodcroft or pick another community, and you have that in abundance, right? So where are you going to live if you can? You're going to go to other places. So then the money chases that way. And if you don't invest in these communities can't grow. If the communities can't grow, then the people can't grow. If the people can't grow, then you deal with your workforce. And you deal with your workforce, you got human capital, then you have crime, then you build prison. So how do you have the same strategic plan alliance that you have in building South Point, downtown, West Village? All that was collaboration. Take those same collaborative efforts and people to collaborate on building the people in all these communities so that you have this kind of this parity. And I believe that that parity also includes, and that's why I focus on entrepreneurship in the work that we do, is that everybody can't be a rock star in technology, right? But you can open up a barbershop in my community and hire 5 barbers and they can stay busy. You can hire a painter. We had this campaign one down, put down your shotgun for a caulk gun. Because, hey, look, follow me. I don't want y'all to understand about construction. How much does it cost for a plumber? A lot, right? That's what y'all say. A lot. It costs about $60, $75 an hour for a plumber. For you all that have MBAs or business degrees, you'll figure it out. 65 times 8 hours a day. Let's say 70 times 8. What's that? 560 times 5 days. Get me there. $2,000 something a week times 4 weeks. Where you at? 8,000 times. Come on, work with me. Well, we get $96,000 to be a plumber, and you don't have to wear underwear. So how do you take? No. So you actually. So my focus is how do you take mind share and move it to market share? Because I can teach that kid that dropped out how to do plumbing, get him employed, and then you give him a skill that he can be self-employed, right? Cell phone in the truck is all you need, because they get some of their money up front. And if you don't pay them, what happens? Because when you call a plumber, you usually need a plumber. You don't just come, hey, go check my stuff, man. Right? So start thinking like, how do we take these communities? And that's the work that I do. Let's make people entrepreneurial. Because if you look at the top 500 companies today are not those of the past. IBM's, Kodak's, they're Googles and YouTubes, and those are people that were college students. Right? Those are people young.
But here's what's interesting about that. It's like, now, I agree with that 100%. But where are you going to put your resources? You want to keep people from drowning in the river. You want to keep them from falling in, right? I mean, you have to make a decision about how to allocate your resources because we look. Early childhood is a proven solution. I don't care what's being said. It's a proven solution. Good early childhood.
So let me.
It's an education thing.
We want them to be able to ask some questions.
I just thank you.
I'm just edifying.
Edifying person.
I want to pontificate. I'm just edifying.
And after we're done, I'll still down the But what I was gonna say is that, but really, I mean, for I hit it right on the head. That's where I was going with the self-ordering. 75% of the occupations created in the next 10 years will not require college. So when people say you can only do those jobs that bring in the Durham with PhDs, that's absolutely not true. But it's the plumbers, it's the folks that are cleaning up, contaminated sites or knowing how to do it, or understanding recyclable building techniques. They are going to, if they get certifications in that, they are highly marketable. And so one of the challenges we have is educating the community, educating the descendants of those people that work in American tobacco who didn't have college degrees but were bringing home $30 an hour in 1988 dollars. It's their grandkids that are thinking, I can't do anything because there's no more American tobacco. The new American Tobacco is the environmental tech firm that's going to make these developments we've been talking about possible in these older buildings because they're laced with asbestos.
Say great.
All right. So I had a feeling it was this way. So I have 7 or 8 questions. I've gotten through 2, which is good. The conversation's been really rich and it's been good, and the panel's taken it in a direction with plumbers and whatever. But we want to leave time for you all to be able to ask some questions. So with that, I'll open it up for some Q&A.
This has been fantastic, and I've got about 8 more questions here.
Well, you only
I only get one. So I want to talk about sort of measurement and attribution of impact. And you guys talked a lot about collaboration, and I think particularly too with economic development, I would imagine it's really hard to attribute specific impacts to any specific thing. So how do you guys think about measurement, about attributing impacts to any individual investment? Does it matter? How do you think about it?
I mean, I think that the most tangible ways for us as a city or a county is that if we, for example, we give a grant to a project that's a dilapidated building, the building gets redone, there's going to be a new tax value that's created that we'll be able to see and be able to. There may be jobs created there that didn't exist a few years ago. Those are very tangible impacts, and you can also point to the amount of the public investment relative to the product. So you have 2 effectiveness measures and 1 efficiency measure, the last one. Those can be related to any specific project, but then when you look at something a little bit more amorphous like downtown revitalization, I mean, you just have to, you kind of, it's sort of the sight test. I mean, you see more people walking around downtown. You see restaurants are crowded. Parking is harder to find. You can look at and there's you can draw a circle around downtown and say the tax base now is X and it was lesser 5 years ago. Those are tangible, but the more intangible things are the ones that tell the story. I can say, look, there's been on Main Street, within a few block radius, there's been 5 or 6 restaurants that have been built in the last 2 years. And most of them are crowded all the time.
That's about tenant traffic. I mean, by the way, the short answer is, the short answer is it doesn't matter who did it. It's all additive. Everything that happens, no matter who does it, is additive. We were the first to say, when we did American Tobacco, we announced it, we said, look, if in 5 years we're not fighting and scraping and killing people trying to keep our tenants, then we've failed. Now, I'll tell you, it's not where it needs to be. There's not enough competition in what we're trying to do. And we want competition. We'll invest in competition. We think that's good.
You mean within Durham?
Within Durham. And you know, we did a, you know, really expensive economic impact study, and I got it, and I looked at it, and I laughed, and I put it in a drawer, and I'll never pull it out again. Because A, it's ridiculous, and B, it doesn't matter, because it's been a lot of efforts, both all the way from someone who opens up a bakery to the people who did American Tobacco. All that's additive into one big picture. I look at more anecdotal stuff like interest in residential, number of tenants running around, traffic to Bulls games, traffic to, I mean, I kind of look at that stuff as really the driver of what's happening. I also listen. I listen to what I grew up in Raleigh, by the way. I'm a Raleigh boy for some reason. You still call me a Raleigh boy, don't you?
But you're a Duke guy.
I'm not. Yes, I'm a Duke fan. I think I'm a Duke. But I listen to what they say about Durham and what other people say about Durham, and listening to conversations of people in the airport talking about Durham, and that's all shifting. You know, people have records about things, and those records are shifting, and they're shifting in a real positive way, and it's not for any one thing except for everybody's good effort.
Right, and then who cares, right? And how we all did it, right? So when you think about Tucker wants his loan repaid, right? At the end of the day, so that he stays in business. I want to create jobs. I want to create jobs and create new entrepreneurs because I think they add value in spaces and impacting a lot of children and everything else, and they pay rent. He wants to make sure he gets rents. He wants to make sure he gets a tax base, and they want to make sure they get a tax base. So ultimately, that's our matrix that we have to maintain to stay in business. But I believe that the conduit effect of us, the additive, is hard to measure. You just can't measure. Sometimes we can measure by saying, wow, because of all the great things that we've made on a smaller scale or bigger scale, now people want to come to downtown Durham and build 26-story buildings. And if they build that building, there's going to be probably another building on the other corner. And then those buildings are going to get filled in parking lots and parking decks, and you start seeing, and it's job creators. So for all of us, we're trying to figure out how do we create jobs, and those jobs are people in the community. Because then you can have an economic impact. Because at the end of the day, we all want an economic impact in this whole thing, because we know economic impact will have a human impact.
But if you really want a name, you can go with us. You want a name?
How do you measure impact? That's something as like a nonprofit whose goals are around wealth creation. It's the thing that we're all trying to do is make people's lives better, and that's the hardest thing to actually measure. It's easier to measure the jobs created, tax base created, tenant interest, rents, vacancy, all that.
And payback.
But payback, delinquency, whatever. It is extremely hard. And one success I think we've had is this. I talked a little about our national secondary market lending program. We did about 50,000 mortgages across the country through that program over about a 10-year period. And I think the most impactful thing we did was we partnered with the other university, the lighter blue one down the road, to actually interview families. All the Ford Foundation paid for this, to select a cohort of that 50,000 and have conversations of, what's going on with your kids, and how much wealth have you been able to create? Did you translate that into college? All that type of that. It takes a big investment to do that type of thing. You can't do it for all 50,000, but you can do samples. So, that's where the universities play a big role. Is how do you really get at this stuff, and how can you do some really, really intensive? I think that's the EDCI. They have to do that kind of stuff, tracking kids over time. It's hard to do. It takes a lot of time, and so people don't do it well.
I know I've been looking this way most of the time. I'm going to shift over here and make sure I'm not ignoring.
Sure. So I wanted to go back to what Tucker said earlier about people coming in from out of state and what incentive they have to invest in the community.
Yeah.
Because when I think about community development, it's always been really interesting to me, and I struggle. I'm a dual degree with the business school and the policy school, and so I have battling sides of my brain where it's like business and multinationals and big companies versus people who are invested in the community and building from within. And I was just wondering how you balance that, wanting to build the community and invest in the community versus wanting to bring jobs to the community. And obviously the jobs sometimes come in the form of chain restaurants and big companies that come in. So it's always been a question in my mind. And you guys, by the way, I think the 5 of you should be cloned and put in every city. But I just figured that you guys would have some insight in that and some good thoughts on it.
I was going to say, I mean, you got to connect. I think connecting local enterprises to the opportunity, even if it's an out of state or out of area entity that gets it. Like Tucker said, to this point, a lot of the development in neighborhoods and in downtown have been local developments, but there are certain things you can put in place to at least try to get the out of state or out of area entities to recognize the presence of local firms that can contribute and participate in development, and local residents that may be prime job seekers. There's certain things you can't force, but I've encountered with some of these developers from out of the area. I mean, I've encountered at least a willingness to want to know how they can be more in line with the community, because most of the ones that recognize, like Michael was talking about, the really seeing the long view. Most of the ones that recognize the power and the significance of the long view know that the connections they have with the community are really going to drive their bottom line. And so I think that a lot of them are willing to do that, but we as the local governmental perspective, from NCIMED's perspective, we have to put in their faces, here are all of the local firms, here are all of the local entities that you should connect with to contribute, and the not-for-profits that you should line up to donate.
I just want to take
I'll just take a quick step, and there's sort of two ways I think about it. One, it's a free marketplace, so you can't really decide who's going to buy a piece of land, if it's going to be an in-state person, a local person, or an out-of-state person. Whoever's going to pay the most, probably whoever owns that property will sell it to. So, but what you can try to do is when somebody shows up, sort of the things Kevin's doing, and what I don't even know if I've ever talked with Kevin about this, but I said we're the lender of the 21C. It's a group from Louisville. There are a lot of really good people outside of Durham, so it's not bad that they're outside of Durham. They've been extremely successful in other places, and we just want them to have we look at what they do in their own communities. We want them to do similar things and have a dedication. And so we do oddball things for a lender, and we'll put in our loan agreements, you have to actually create X number of jobs, and you have to hire. So we piggyback off of what the city's trying to do and hire local, for construction, and create X number of jobs at different income points. We'll put that in the loan agreement just to try to push that way. It's something that Farad's group did at NCIMED, and they brought self-help in to help a little bit with this, but is going into the community and talking to developers and trying to give them the tools and the connections that they need to compete. So Farad organized a whole lecture series that it was a minority and women developers, and then brought in a bunch of speakers to come and sort of teach how do you get access to capital. What's that?
Empire?
Yeah. What you talk about?
You can do that, man.
I was just showing up and gathered for a little while.
So we know Michael won't invest in the community, in the hood, we call it, because it doesn't have the right ROI for him, right? So what we did was say that there.
Our guy and I were doing that? Are you going to wait till?
I'm just messing with man, come on, that's easy. He's just so one of the things that we realized, we got this model from I went to Memphis for a visit, actually I went there for a Beale Street event, talking about Beale Street and the Black Wall Street on Parrish Street. And I was there, I was talking with the mayor, and I was saying like, well, how did you do some of this stuff get some of this development in the inner city, and in the hood? He said, well, we put this thing together with the Chamber of Commerce called Empire. And what they did over a 6-month period is they brought in women and minority individuals or people who own firms and said, let me train you on how to do development, right? Understanding how to get permitting, how to purchase land, how to get through zoning, how to work with the city, how to do all these things. All these are components in development. If you've never done development, it's not for the weak. It's not for the weary. It's a painful process. So we actually trained the people, and then we used a piece of land owned by the city as a model. And at the end of the class, after about 4 months, they did what they would do with this space. Someone came with a pizzeria, somebody said this and this, and then hopefully those guys will go back into their community and do some development, because it's passion before profits. So if they can understand how to do development, no longer you have to say, well, we don't have a grocery store, or we don't have this. We just empower that leader in that community to begin to do that. Then they can go to someone like Mike and say, help us acquire the land. We're going to outfit this thing and operate it. Because remember, entrepreneurship is the answer now. You can't go to corporations and get jobs and expect to have a 401k and benefits. That's over. That game was over when I left school. No, good money, don't forget jobs. Well, you don't have 8 of those before it's over anyway. So, entrepreneurship provides the most stable opportunity, especially in lower income communities, because it gives them some of the upfit and pride of their work. So our goal was to say, how do we do that in a way that we build something? So we did that, and I thought it was successful.
So we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Question here.
I would love to hear more about EDCI. I mean, the little bit that you touched on, it totally lit me on fire, because I've been working with adults in transition to break generational poverty cycles through education and life-changing work for a long time. And so I would love to hear more about what EDCI is doing with children and with families and parents to help in the community.
After, particularly if I can hop onto that.
After?
Yes.
Is everybody, that's.
I'm yours,
What-
yeah.
Okay, cool. Come sit.
You'll be at a 5.
Okay, so okay, let me go to the other side.
I was going to have a question, so I just input.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first off, my name is Christian Jones. I'm a student from Goodmon University. I'm actually born and raised in Durham, so everything you guys are saying, I can directly relate to every single thing you guys said as far as output, as far as the community aspect of things, and especially someone who went off to college, got out of the Durham community. For me personally, I've always been that person that, I've been pretty much trying to run away from Durham. You talk about the whole swagger of the area and stuff like that. I've been trying to get away from the start, But, as far as the development that's been going on in the area, I feel like there's always been a road that's constantly pulling me back to say, Christian, come back. There's opportunity for you to make an impact on a community that may not be as, profitable or, flourishing as other areas. Me personally, I have certain dreams and aspirations, for instance, I plan on taking over Durham at some point in time in my life. But I also want to say, I just want to, pretty much co-sign a lot of things you guys are saying as far as, the efforts in the community, that there is a community, a sense of community. For instance, I grew up in the Duke Park area. I don't know if you guys agree with that. But I was, you say it's in the village to raise a child. The Duke Park community pretty much raised me. I wouldn't be in college today if it wasn't for people that might have lived next door to me or 2 streets down, or even lived in the Trinity Park area. So that sense of community, that is the backbone of the success of Durham. But I know families that I know, they own local businesses. I know local pops. I know people who are directly involved with the development of that. I'm pretty sure you're not ahead of it yet. So I know all about that. But I just mostly want to commend you all for your efforts in the American Tobacco. I live right down the street from that. I've seen all of it, and you guys done a great job. And she was saying closing you all in other communities. I've been thinking I go to Elon, and I've been in the Burlington area. They have the same issue, the whole poverty issue, and it's a divide of this area has all the businesses, but then this area is not as developed. So I just feel like there is a strong need for awareness and issues in the community as far as education. Because I grew up with I went off to college and I would talk to a single person that I went to high school with, and that's just because they didn't have those drives and ambitions that I had. So it starts, like you said, it starts young, going through school, stuff like that. So I'm just a primary source and a primary example of it is possible. But at the same time, it is an awareness that's needed within the community that can help drive the flourishing of a community like Durham, or even the triangle as a whole. I think it's gonna happen.
Let me know when you run for mayor.
Come on back.
So that's something that I'll wrap up with. I'm going to take one more question, but I'm going to come back to what Christian just said, and thank you for your passion. Thank you for wanting to be involved and really wanting to make a difference. So that's an important thread that I hope you all are hearing through these comments, and that's probably going to be what I'm going to close with. So I've got time for one more question.
So my one question is, and this is because I love the part of Durham down over near Gear Street where like Cocoa Cinnamon and Full Steam and Motor Coke on it. And my fear always is with revitalization efforts and sort of urban redevelopment is sort of this gentrification process.
Keep it dirty.
But I feel like even over there, like that's sort of heading, it's obviously not as far east in the northeast Durham, but it's still entering into some of those neighborhoods when you get sort of further off towards Roxborough and Alston. And I don't feel like I'm seeing that community brought into those areas, into that revitalization effort. So I'm wondering how can we collectively sort of fight that gentrification process to happen? How can we include the communities immediately surrounding some of these areas that are getting revitalized so that it doesn't wind up sort of just pushing out, and kind of maintaining these?
So I lived in that community. I just want to take one quick answer. One of the things that the Durham is pretty cool with is they have those listservs for communities. So they got like Old North Durham.
Yeah, I'm on the Walltown one.
Right, Walltown. And those become advocacy groups that are unbearable sometimes for the community to stay gritty. So for that community particularly, that's what I would tell you to keep it.
And that's a challenge in all of that. By the way, if you have the answer, please let us know.
Okay.
Because we are acutely aware of this, but it's interesting. I mean, look at, okay, you got your crowd, you got your American in the back crowd, you got your inside the loop crowd, and everybody not inside the loop like there's Disney World over there, and America in the back crowd, right here, all the corporate. I mean, there's going to be dynamics like that. Gentrification obviously is a big concern for what you're doing, especially on the north side of downtown because you are so adjacent. But I think you don't want gentrification, but we do need a mix of incomes and a mix of people in the community. It doesn't work if everybody's very poor. That's just ain't.
But I also think that we need to recognize it for what it is in Durham. When you do urban redevelopment, empirically, gentrification is an issue. But from my conversations with native Durhamites who are living in the neighborhoods, and I asked exactly the same questions. And a person that who lives within a block, grew up within a block of Alston Avenue, and he said to me, Kevin, this isn't always about gentrification. Half of those houses that people are buying up now have been boarded up and abandoned. Right. They're absentee landlords that do absolutely nothing with the property. So I mean, what you're saying may be true in some instances, but it's just like what I would say with education and crime. First, stratify and identify the problem for what it is, and separate that from the perception of what it might be. And then to me, those are the first steps to really to attack it, because I don't know the extent to which there's gentrification happening in northeast central Durham or Walltown, where if some of these houses are empty and code enforcement issues that are just waiting to be solved, and it's taking someone from outside the community with money who's willing to undertake the risks and all of the historic preservation sort of. That's another issue. The historic preservation issues related to redoing these properties.
You got 3 minutes, fellas.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing about it because we deal with this all the time. One is it's a real concern, but you can't let it become so much concern that leads to nothing. It cripples some commute paralysis, right? But a strategy we've tried to take is like in the West End neighborhood where we partnered with Habitat and DCLT to do 150 houses. You deed restrict those houses long term to make them affordable, and then now we're moving up to West Chapel Hill Street to the commercial corridor, and then you do that development, and so you deed restrict affordability in before you do massive development. And so Walltown that's 15 years later, right? We started there 15 years ago, and there's gentrification all over Walltown, and we have the issue that we've put affordability requirements on 100 houses in that community, and people want to pay a lot more money for the house, but we say, sorry, you're not low and moderate income. So you do it through a lot of, that's one mechanism. Do the housing first, deed restrict it, and then go to the commercial districts. That's one technique, but it's hard.
So I want to close with saying that this is something that I've observed. I'm actually coming back to Durham. I was an intern in Durham in the late 90s when I was at that other university down the road with the lighter blue. But the amazing transformation that I've seen from 1997 to when I came back, it's just been amazing. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen, the market plays a big role, obviously the things that have been done. But what I've seen in this community is passion, engagement, and us on the government side, you may hear some folks sort of complain about engagement, but it's really critical to getting things done. Folks that are passionate, engaged, and really bought into their community and concerned. And the diversity of this community, I think all of that, those are things that you can't measure, and there's just a vibe about this place that isn't in a lot of places, and that's what's driving a lot of this transformation. So with that, I want to thank these four gentlemen for their time, and with that,
And thank you all